That's what we're with all the mics. You know?
Yeah.
Okay. No, never mind. Whatever.
And everyone
Hello?
remember, use the mics.
Are we live?
All right, counting down in 6. We're gonna be live in 6 seconds. 6.
You're live now.
Go.
Not hearing. Wait, but that's because he's using a separate device. Is that one?
Sure. Yeah.
This device, we don't hear on the mic, right? This device, we're not hearing. Amplified on the mic.
The device he's with. Everybody should have it. They should be. I'm not sure why. Yeah, mics are- All your devices, that's just audio into his ear, nothing else. Otherwise, yes.
I thought it was from.
No.
Yours on.
Thank you. Committee meeting by logging into the Zoom webinar listed below. Committee meetings may be viewed live and or on demand via the city YouTube channel at youtube.com/Brisbane CA or on Comcast channel 27. Archived videos may be replayed on the city's website, brisbaneca.org/meetings. Please be advised that if there are technological difficulties, the meeting will nevertheless continue if remote participation is available. The agenda materials may be viewed online at brisbaneca.org at least 72 hours prior to a regular meeting and at least 24 hours prior to a special meeting. Remote public comments. Remote meeting participation may address the committee. Participants may address the committee. Aside from commenting personally while in the Zoom webinar, the following email address will also be monitored during the meeting, and public comments received will be noted for the record during oral communications or during an agenda item. That email is tsantoyo, that's TSANTOYO ci.brisbane.ca.us. To join the Zoom webinar at zoom.us, please use the latest version of zoom.us/download. The web address for the webinar is at https://us006w.us/J/82213077463. The webinar ID is 822-1307-7463. You can also participate by telephone by calling this number 1-669-900-9128. A note to callers, *9 to raise your hand and dial *6 to mute and unmute your microphone. Special assistance. If you need special assistance to participate in this meeting, please contact Tomas Santoyo at TSANTOYO@brisbaneca.org or at telephone number 415-508-2100. Notification in advance of the meeting will enable the city to make reasonable arrangements to ensure accessibility to this meeting. Okay. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Could we please have roll call?
Cabrera,
Present. Maybe a little closer.
Strecker,
Present.
Painter,
Present.
Present.
Okay, all members are present and we have a quorum. We have no requests for members to attend remotely, so that item A does not need to be considered. Adoption of the agenda. Could I have a motion to adopt the agenda as it has been presented, or any changes that someone would like to propose? Thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Could we have roll call then to adopt the agenda?
Cabrera,
Aye.
it's on. They're not hearing me. There we go. Let me start over. Cabrera,
Aye.
Detmer, Strecker,
Aye.
Tainter,
Aye.
and Wozniak.
Aye.
Thank you.
The agenda is so adopted. Do we have any oral communications from the public?
Oh, yes, it was my mistake. Once we get to the agenda item, we'll let them comment. Oral communication would be for any unrelated items.
Okay. There's no, there's nothing.
And there's no oral communication at this point.
Very good. Thank you. Let's move on to approval of the minutes for our meeting, our last meeting, which was on February 1st, 2022. Were there any corrections, changes, additions, or deletions that anyone had for the minutes? Okay. Could I then have a motion to adopt the minutes as they've been presented?
I made the motion to adopt the minutes.
A second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Could we have roll call then?
Cabrera,
Aye.
Detmer, Strecker,
Aye.
Tainter,
Aye.
and Wozniak.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's move on to old business then, which is the review of the residential parking permit program. Do we begin with public comments?
It's up to you.
Why don't we hear from the public to start with, and then as we discuss this, as more comments come up, we can let additional comments occur.
All right.
Okay, yeah, I'll start by promoting. I'll just promote one at a time so we can each comment at one time. But Stephen Cherry. Should be able to talk once your panel. Oh, there she is.
Allowed to.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I would like to speak out against permit parking in Lower Brisbane, which I think if approved would eventually lead to permit parking on all residential streets in town. I've been out of the country for a while. I don't claim to be an expert on this, but I do have some concerns about why I think this is a bad idea. Number one, how much will this cost and who pays to enforce this? The city is on the verge of eliminating the senior shuttle, according to today's Star, and now they want to pay for parking enforcement. I question whether we have the time, money, and resources to enforce this. We are not Millbrae. We are not Hillsborough. Number two, people are very unhappy that water and sewer rates are going through the roof. Why should they now have to pay for parking? Three, I feel that the purpose of this is to punish people who have more than 2 cars, which means multi-generational families, people with teenagers, the poor living in multifamily housing situations, or those who have an extra car for family visits. Permit parking does not guarantee you have a space that's in front of your house. It only allows you to park on certain streets. Personally, I prefer that our police department focus on crime and not who is parked without a permit. We already have a solution to those who leave cars unattended for days. Call the city and they will be red tagged and towed. Those who are disabled can request a handicapped blue curb, I believe, in front of their homes. The focus of this committee is supposed to be street safety. To me, this is about creating an environment where neighbors report on neighbors and the city profits. The committee is supposed to be, it seems to me like overkill and government intrusion. Do we really need this? If this moves forward, I believe it should be voted upon by all residents in Brisbane. Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to take all the comment together? Okay.
Yes.
All right, we'll go with Leslie Davis now. There she is.
Hi there, this is Leslie Davis.
We hear you, Leslie.
Oh, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Great. I've been a resident for over 35 years, and I don't really see a benefit to having parking permits. I'm just doing this off the top of my head, but it's not going to change in my neighborhood, in my few block radius, anything. People park on the street. They don't use their garages for one reason or another. It's not going to change the amount of cars. We don't have a problem on our street of people parking and leaving their cars. So I'd be curious if there is information about how many cars have been towed over the last 12 months because they were left on the street. A lot of people claim that people park and go to the airport. So I don't know if that information is available, but I think that residential parking permit doesn't really help. Also, I have a question without knowing the entire program is if you have someone coming to visit for a day or two, or for spring break or the holidays, how many days can they park on the street without having a sticker before there's an issue? So those are my questions. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Leslie. Last attendee is Danny Chan. I'll promote now, Danny. Hey, Danny, you should be being prompted to being promoted to panelist, and then you should be able to speak once you're in there. Actually, you're on, Danny. You can speak now if you unmute your mic. He can do it himself, but I can ask him to. Technical difficulties. Move on.
We're up on the right side where it says participants. Did it move him?
No, he's still on attendees.
Should we come back to him later?
Yeah, I guess we'll take that route. You guys are free to respond, committee, if you maybe have a response prepared from what the feedback we just heard. So we'll give you guys the floor.
Does anybody have any thoughts, comments they want to make to the public comment? Okay, Linda, please.
Thank you for joining our meeting. And I just want to go back to how we came to work on this project. We were asked by the city council to take a look at what's going on. And it was at the park. What event? I'm sorry. Family Day at the park, I believe. And a booth was set up, and the majority of the people who attended and filled out a questionnaire were very interested in parking permits. So as directed by the council, we've spent over a year, maybe nearly 2 years, trying to figure out what will work. And all of the things that you've brought up have been addressed. There's a low cost to getting this done. There's trying to think of the word. There is an availability for guest parking, students that go to college. We've really turned this inside out, and I hope that you will get an opportunity to read the document in full when it's done. And of course, once this goes to the council, which will be very soon, certainly bring your comments to them. And thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, Linda. Greg, did you have some comments? Okay.
Yeah, I guess I can also comment. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining virtually there. To address some of the points, I guess, that were brought up, in terms of the amount of parking from the SFO perspective, I think some of the things that we thought about were, what's the actual problem we're trying to address here? And I think that was one of the issues, the cars in the streets. Another one, I think this document that Linda had mentioned sort of brings together some of the ideas that we have, and we're going to propose it to council. But again, I think one of the things we'll talk about tonight is sort of how much we support that as well. I think this is sort of a research project where we brought some of these forward. But I would also, I think we'll come back to sort of whether or not this is something that will address all the problems and what aspects of the problems this will address and sort of how we view that moving forward. But I think these comments that were brought up are definitely, things we thought about and were addressed there, and also we'll continue to discuss tonight. So thank you for the comments, and all things we'll, continue to discuss.
Hi, I just wanted to add that we're calling this a living program. The first year we will be looking at and asking people to please comment on how it's working for you so that changes can be made, and it evolves into a program that works for everyone. There's been an awful lot of discussion about people being unhappy with parking. And I just hope you'll have an open mind about it and give us some feedback. Thank you.
Do you have some?
Sure. So Steve, Sherry, and Leslie, thanks for attending and providing your feedback to this topic, for the Street Safety Committee. So as Linda mentioned, we have been doing a lot of work in this regards, and there was a survey put together and some field work where we find out that there's a scarcity and somewhat of a disorganization on parking. So one of the aims of this program is also for a lot of people to encourage people to start to clean up their garage and see if they could utilize that. That will free up some space, and also to try to start weeding out some of the bad actors, like people that come here that they leave their car and they go to the airport. And there's people that have not just 2 or 3 cars, they have a lot of cars. But having said that, in terms of the cost of the programs nowadays, because you could subcontract this is somewhat feasible, and a lot of people, other cities are doing it. We also did looked at a lot of other cities, and we got some of their best practices, and we put them in this report. So that was one of them, that a lot of cities are contracting other business to take care of this. So it's not going to take a lot of resources from our police department, right? But I do agree with you, and we were given this by council, and it's something that we're providing a robust report, and at the end of the day, it's not a done deal yet. And that's why we appreciate your feedback. And it's going to go to council, and you're going to have another opportunity to state your comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. I'd like to make a few comments then as well. I think echoing much of what has already been said. We started looking at the request of council. We started looking at parking in about the middle of 2020. And the first two things we did was we picked 6 random blocks within Brisbane. And we conducted over a 2-week period, morning and evening parking surveys on those streets. And what we found on those streets were scattered throughout central Brisbane, what we would call Old Town. And what we found, one of the conclusions or one of the findings of that survey was that there was a 97 or 99% average utilization of parking, available street parking during mornings and then during evenings. Again, this was time to be just as people were leaving for work in the morning and before people came home in the evening. We also conducted an online and survey, as well as having a survey table at Day in the Park. And I believe we had some more than 300 responses to that survey. At the time, I think it set a record for the number of responses to a survey that the city of Brisbane had done. One of the key findings of that survey was that some 64% of the respondents, let me back up, some 70% of the respondents felt parking was a problem in Brisbane, and some 64% of the respondents favored a parking permit program either somewhat or strongly. So as we then took this data and worked through the remainder of 2020 through 2021, we formulated initially and brought to council a recommendation for a public outreach kind of program. We cannot say that we conclusively have determined what is the issue. There are many anecdotal discussions of people parking here to go to the airport, people using the streets for excess car storage, as in many more cars than what a household might need for transportation. But with that in mind, we came up with initially a public outreach program. And when we reviewed that with council, council felt that the problem of parking in the city was severe enough that public outreach type of programs would not be effective. What we were then requested to do, and this was in December of 2021, council requested that we look at best practices of other cities and determine that if Brisbane were to implement a parking permit program, what would be the best way to do that that would fit Brisbane? We have some similarities with other cities. We have some significant differences with other cities. But staff picked up, found many cities throughout the Bay Area that have analogous situations, whether steep hillsides and narrow roads, small populations, things like this. And we looked at, I want to say 8 or 10 cities, something like that. And
Yeah, I think it was like 14, but yes.
14. Okay, thank you. And looked at what they did. And then for the past year, we have gone through and reviewed in our public meetings what each of those cities were doing and discussed this, and have put together what we feel would be, if a parking program were to be implemented, how it could be best be done here in Brisbane. So what we are doing tonight is to finalize what our recommendation of such a program could look like. And then it will go to council, and I believe it's in May. Do we have a date on that?
April 6th, if we're ready.
Okay, April 6th, if we reach consensus tonight. It will be in front of the in front of City Council on April 6th. And the public at that point should, if you have feelings one way or another on a parking permit program, I would hope you would attend that meeting and make your voices heard. Thank you. Anybody else have any other comments to make on before we proceed? Okay,
All right, let me get the agenda back on screen.
thank you. If you want to, if Danny Chan is able to communicate, I'm not sure, can he send us a text or something that he's able to come back online?
He should be able to chat me, but I haven't received anything. Also, I'm noticing that Steve and Sherry are raising their hand in the
Okay,
attendees, so we let them
why don't we
comment.
hear from him? Yeah.
Go ahead, guys.
I would just like to say that I really don't feel that it is up to the city to get people to clean up their garages. And it's really not the city's business what we have in our garages. And I would just like to say that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Pat, agenda's up for you.
Okay, thank you. One comment I would add is that we as a committee have never voted whether we want a parking permit program or not. We have simply acted as best we can, the duty that the city has given to us.
Can I comment there?
Yeah.
When I went back over, that came up at our last meeting, and I went back over all the minutes. So when staff brought the agenda item to council in April of 2021, the committee, which was somewhat different, some of the members are newer, had made a recommendation to have a 6-step program. First step was what are you calling it? A public service message, be a star, take a car off the street, like you'd get some type of recognition for creating space on the street by using your garage for parking. And then look at if that helped the situation. And then a second step was to implement a residential street sweeping program, which we used to have, but the street sweeper would have to drive out the middle of the street because we never enforced people having to move off of the block. And it would be a system where we'd do different blocks on different days, so most people would be able to find a place to park on that alternate day, and then see if that helped with the problem of the storage of cars on the street. And then the final step was going to be a parking permit program if all those other things didn't work. Again, looking at how that changed the situation. And I think the committee actually also suggested at the time that there be a vote before implementing such a thing. So then it went to council, and council said, focus on the parking permit program. We don't want to engage with the other two. We just want to have what your recommendation is to do that. So that's where we find ourselves. That it was part of the overall picture, but not alone itself.
That's correct. Now that you tickle my memory. Thank you, Karen.
Yes, that's a very good point, Karen, and we call that stick and carrot, so to speak.
Okay, I think we're ready to talk about the letter now,
All right.
or the report to council. Okay, again, I'd suggest we go through this as we did last time. I've gone through this. I'm sure all of you have as well. I think the changes that we recommended last time are included, but let's just make sure that it's all here. Community goal and result, and that's as our general goals as a committee, are a safe community first and community building second. Any changes or comments on that? Okay. The purpose is to present council with complete street safety committee meetings, residential parking permit program recommendation to address the complex parking scarcity issue in central Brisbane. Any thoughts? We're all okay? All right. Background. I don't think we need to go question background, and I think we just kind of accepted it as it was last time, right? Yeah, okay, let's skip down then to the discussion. Over several meetings, the CSSC reviewed and came.
Patrick, I wanted to say I added in background the part about the 6-step program to kind of clarify that that's what we brought to council, and then council directed the committee to develop these guidelines.
Could we just scroll up and look at that then quickly?
In the second paragraph there at the April 7th meeting.
At the April 7th, 2022 City Council meeting, survey results were shared, and the committee thought staff requested feedback, and the committee through staff requested feedback from council on their 3-part plan. Encourage residents to clean out and park in garages to improve street parking capacity. 2, implement a residential street sweeping program with enforcement. And 3, if 1 and 2 were not sufficient to implement, then a residential parking permit program. At the meeting, the CSSC was directed by council to focus on residential parking permit program to be brought back to council. Thank you, Karen. That's great. We're all okay with that? Okay. Let's come down to do discussion then. Over several meetings, the CSSC reviewed and came to agreement to recommend the implementation of a residential parking permit program in Central Brisbane with the following guidelines. 1, the program will be in effect throughout Central Brisbane, including Visitation Avenue, excluding private roads and the backside of San Bruno Avenue, for which no street parking exists. I guess I'm going to look, and if you have something, raise your hand. Yeah.
I guess in that case, yeah, we sort of skipped over the recommendation section. I'm wondering, is that part of the discussion later? If there may or may not be not a revote, I'll say, but a reassessment of the previous the recommendation above the discussion between purpose and recommendation, where we say adopt the recommended parking permit program. If you scroll up a little bit. Yeah, right there. Portion.
Thank
Just
you.
wanted to, well, if we, whether this is the time or if we come back to this later.
No, let's do that right now. Our recommendation is to adopt the CSSC recommended parking permit program guidelines and to provide direction to staff. How is it? Is there?
I guess my question is, does this suggest that then the committee does recommend a parking permit program given the change in sort of 6-step versus 1-step program? Is that something we discuss and vote on? Just to clarify.
Thoughts on that?
I think yes is the answer to that question.
So meaning, yes, we do recommend then as a committee.
Now, to interject, I had thought that was how we concluded the last meeting was it had come up that had the committee, and again, you're reconstituted, there are some new members. So a prior membership of the committee recommended the 6-step plan that I kind of paraphrased in this agenda report. So you had said, are we recommending what all of these items that we've come up with that make up what a parking permit is the committee recommending that to council? And I think you wanted to make sure that that was the case and feel comfortable with that, because that's the way we've written this staff report.
I think my intention was that not that we were endorsing as a committee necessarily a parking permit program, because as part of our 6-step plan, we haven't tried the other steps first, looking back to how the committee had come to this. I'm not sure exactly how to word that.
Well, I think that from staff's perspective, I think we need to know you are recommending something or you're not to bring it to council. Otherwise, if you're not recommending it, then why would we even bring it forward to council?
So council requested us to come back to them with a program that would, of how a parking program could, how a permit program could be implemented in Brisbane. And I think that's what we're sending on to them today.
Well, I understand that, but are you going to say these are the guidelines we came up with, but we don't actually recommend it? That's a little bit,
Can I interject,
Challenging.
please?
yes, please.
I think at our last meeting, we talked about this and we did discuss amongst the committee about the parking permit program, and pretty much the committee decided that they would do the work at the pleasure of the council, but we expressed our feelings. And I think I might have been the only one that said I wasn't interested in a parking program. But because as a whole, the committee was in agreement to do it, I thought that pretty much answers that question. We adopt it, we go forward with it and do what we were asked by the council.
I think one way maybe that, I think at least, I'm not sure what the entire consensus is as a committee is, but at least for, I think in terms of recommendation, I think if the city council decided to decide they wanted to go the parking permit route for the parking permit program, this was our recommendation to them about how it should be set up. I don't know necessarily, I think it's one of those things where we don't, as a committee, the recommendation of we want to recommend, if the council was to do it, this is kind of how we would see how a parking program would work in Brisbane, I think. Is what
Agree, yes.
Well, I think you need to have a vote. Are you recommending or are you not? That needs to be part of this report. Yeah, I
So-
don't think you can dance around it. It's
Regardless, you guys obviously can present it to council, but I mean, it
staff,
matters.
no, staff presents it to council.
So,
Don't-
as I'm recalling the discussion at that meeting in council, the first suggestion was to hire an outside consultant to study and make recommendations of
One of the council members.
one of the council members, correct. As to what a parking program would entail and how it should be structured. To which another council member said, that's costly. We have a committee that works with already in the city that works with streets and parking and safety and pedestrians and bicycles. Let's ask them to look at this. And that is the complete streets committee. That's us. So I think we have, just as a outside consultant would not come in and say, city, you should implement parking. I don't think we necessarily should be required to do that either, if that's not how we feel it should proceed.
I think a consultant would though. We found that you have this, your streets are 95% to 100% full. Here's how you can fix it. We are recommending that this would fix it. I think that would. I mean,
Okay.
I think it's a little, you guys are the streets committee, so are you saying you don't think that this is a good solution? I mean, if you're not, it kind of weakens the whole thing that we're bringing to council, I think.
So, I mean, we touched on this the last meeting, and obviously, you know, it keeps coming up, and we're not 100% clear how to address it. But for the most part, in my opinion, we could probably, if we sort of tailor the wording instead of recommending reporting. But then again, it almost seems like, you know, we're recommending the parking permit program guidelines and provided direction to staff. So we're saying what we learned, this is what we recommended for what we learned. But at the same time, it could be misinterpreted that we're sponsoring it too, or we're like in favor to implement it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you and I talked, Patrick, and I thought that's what part of what this meeting was for you guys to vote on whether the majority recommended it, and yes, sponsor it is,
Well-
that's not an unfair way to describe it. So I think you can say that you're not comfortable. Huh?
Say again.
I'd like to make a motion that we take a vote on whether we are endorsing this now, regardless of how we felt when we started out.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, let's have a roll call on that motion, please.
Cabrera,
No.
we're just voting to vote, or we're voting on recommending?
Let's clarify the motion. Let's clarify the motion. Linda?
My motion is to ask if you are.
Mike,
Oh, sorry. Okay, my intention with the motion is to ask if you are currently in agreement with what we're recommending to the council, regardless of how you felt about a parking program initially when we started this task.
Let me ask what, by being in agreement with what is being recommended, do you mean, do we endorse a permit program?
Yes, at this time. Well, oh no, I don't know if that's, I think I endorse the recommendations without necessarily going as far as saying, or even having to reveal whether we endorse a parking program. We've done our job as asked. And now it's, this is the hard work that we've finally have come almost to an end with. And so I think that the motion is simply to say, are you on board with presenting this to the council? Are we prepared now to send this to the council as a group? Do we agree this is our best work?
But I think that's what, I think that's not what this sentence says.
I guess the question is, are we voting on endorsing the proposal or whether to send it to council regardless of the, I guess, Linda, you're proposing that we send it regardless of our endorsement, or are you saying we should vote on the endorsement of it?
I think we should vote on the endorsement of the work and its completion. And that we are prepared to send this to council saying that this is our best work at this point. If they have questions, it'll come back.
well, I guess what if any of you attend the meeting, I would anticipate the council members would say, do you want this? Is this something that you want in your neighborhood? Are you in support of this? Or did you just come up with guidelines hoping that we didn't adopt? Like, I think that would come up, and
Okay.
and it doesn't have to be unanimous.
It's a double-edged sword. So
Yes.
maybe I should change my motion to biting the bullet and saying, do we endorse this as a committee? And see the value in it. I don't know how to word that exactly, but see the value in it for our community. I really didn't want to go there, but if that's necessary to take the next step and to assure the council that this is our best work to date and this is what we're recommending, then I'm willing to do that. Does that make sense? Or somebody put it in other words.
I mean, those words work, and I think that's what staff talks to council about the agenda and what's coming before them, and that's what is needed to bring this without ambiguity to the council.
Can we change the word recommended for to reporting?
No, I don't think that's getting there. I mean, it could be endorse. That's a word that Linda's using. But if the majority vote is no, that it isn't something that you want to see in your neighborhood, but if council wants to do it, they may go ahead, then that's going to have to be worked into the report.
So, you know, this is a little, I mean, for us, we're volunteers. I know this is where your point of employment, but this is, you know, if we were to take an analogy back to where we have been in points of employment, sometimes your boss asks you to work on something that you're not really keen on, but you still have to do the best job because that's your job, right? And so from my perspective, that's how I look at how this task. Council came back to us and asked us whether or not we personally support a permit program or not, asked us to put together a best practice, what we could come up with as what would best fit Brisbane and hopefully solve or partially solve the parking problem in town.
So here's how my take is different than that, though, is that it was part of a bigger recommendation, and they paired off the other parts and said, that stuff's not helpful, and we don't want to do street sweeping, and we don't want to do a PR. We want something more solidified about this. I, as a staff person that don't live in this city, am the neutral one that does what I'm told. You guys
Right.
are representatives of the community. So that's different. It's not simply your supervisor told you to do this task. You are the eyes and ears of the community. You got a little bit of feedback. We did the survey. We got a bunch of feedback. You know what? We don't really know. A lot of people may come and say, we don't want this. You know, it may not be the same people that answered the survey. They may be upset. Some people may be happy. I don't know, but we have to, we're boiling down all the information we have, whether it be on social media, whether it be the survey, whether it be talking to your neighbors. Do we think this is a good thing to do or not? I mean, council wants to know from you guys, do we think this is a good thing to do or not?
This
You're
is,
the like the intermediate, not the intermediary, but the first step to, instead of them just getting it cold from staff with no community feedback. So, I mean, if you guys feel like you want to get more community feedback first, that's fine too.
Darius?
well,
Or Christian? I'm sorry.
yeah. I mean, in a way, I'm starting to, to feel like we're being put on the spot to have a more personal character or criteria, how we feel, and, how we feel about this program. The first recommendation that we gave them, they looked at it and then they came back with something that we didn't recommend them. Now we're here. We don't know what's going to happen after they review this report. But all we're saying is, we were given some due diligence and we did them, and we're recommending what we did, but we're not endorsing that, that we feel that Brisbane needs a parking permit. That's it. So it's a matter of wording, in my opinion.
Well, I guess I'm wondering, is that the majority of the committee's position? And if it is, that's okay. I'm not judging. I mean, I understand it's very difficult. If I were on my committee in my town, I'd be very careful too. I'd want to get input and get the pulse of the community. But it was part of a recommendation. It wasn't something completely different that they asked us to do. And you're a policy recommending body. So do you recommend this as a policy or a program, I guess?
Darius, you look like you want to say something.
I guess, yeah. I'm trying to figure out how do we sort of maybe the wording. I agree with Christian that the wording is sort of the issue. And I think that I don't want to diminish the work the council has done in the last year plus before my time even. And I agree that the work is there. And I think if there were a permit program, this is how we do. But personally, I don't agree with it necessarily. I think that maybe we put that up to a vote. So maybe I make a motion now for us to vote on whether we endorse it, and then we can change the wording on whether we want to adopt it versus review or work out the wording. But perhaps we should vote on whether we endorse it or not, given the new council and sort of the feedback we've heard and the collection of feedback in the last, say, couple months.
Okay.
Sort of coming back to what is the issue we're trying to address. And that's something that I kept coming back to. We've talked about it a few times already, so.
Linda?
Well, I'd like to add that I'm not comfortable with going out there and saying, I endorse a parking permit program or not. I endorse the work that we've done.
Yes.
And I think that's enough that gets us into the position of endorsing what we're presenting and not have to personally disclose our feelings about a parking permit program. How does that feel?
Thank you.
I guess to reply, I'm completely open to that. Would it be possible to abstain from voting? And then if there's not majority, we could, or at least then on the record, it sort of reflects what the committee feels, but we still present something to council potentially in terms of what they requested from us, or maybe not. If the committee doesn't want to vote, then yeah.
Let me make some comments. I'll just throw out a couple ideas here. Or some thoughts. Our original recommendation was the public outreach program. And then later on, if everything failed after our, I think it was 12 months of trial or something, Karen, we're going to try the public outreach and the incentive program for a year, I think, or 6 months.
6 months, maybe.
6 months, okay. And then if that didn't work, the idea was then, you know, the street sweeping signs where you've got to get off the street certain hours of the week. And if that didn't work, then go to a permit program. So we never as a city tried the other things. And while at that time, the last resort step in our recommendation was a parking program. At this point in time, without trying the other items that we had recommended, the parking program has now moved to the top of the line and has become our only recommendation. Maybe the solution is that we put this in the context of what our original recommendation was, which was the 6-point plan or the multi-point plan. And rather than just saying implement a parking permit, implement this parking permit program. And we would then go through the details and the work that we have put in putting this together for the last year.
You mean implement all of the steps that you originally recommended?
Try those. That was, yes, go back to our original recommendation to council. And the last step, the last resort, if nothing else helped resolve the parking issue in town, then the last resort was to a permit program. And then this would be included in that as expanding that section rather than just one line, implement a parking permit program. We implement a parking program with these criteria that are addressed in this.
Right, and they
report.
already said no to those other steps at the meeting they held. So, I mean, maybe yeah.
Well, they can say no again.
It feels like overkill and a lot of,
Say again?
it feels like overkill and a lot of repetition to
Okay.
me personally. We've been there, we've been given this back. This is our job to do. The work we've done, I think, is good work. And I would be willing to express that this is what I believe is the best route to go that we can discover at this point.
Okay.
And in that,
Can
I
we
think
get
we
it, the
can
letter
all
back up on
agree.
screen?
Let me ask a question of you guys. Do you think that we need, let's say the council says, yeah, we want to do this, great guidelines, do you think that we need more outreach? Do you think there's a piece missing where, you know, we heard
Well-
from some members of the community that are very against, but we did a survey and we heard from a lot of people that were in support. Do we feel like we're not really sure what the pulse of the community is?
I don't
I'm
think
a li-
so.
I'm a little surprised that the meeting is empty tonight. I mean, this was the top item in the blast. I expected more than 4 or 5, I expected even in person. It's been such a hot issue in town for many years. Christian?
I mean, yeah, I feel sort of like, in a pickle, in a way, this is very good work. And I don't want to be shooting it from the hip saying, I'm not necessarily as a citizen of Brisbane endorse at this point a parking permit program, but this was given to us and, we need to give it to council. But there were also other, conversations that went on that I think it was made clear to us that we will make, we will work on this and they were going to do the public outreach. That's not us. So, and then I think at the beginning, we talked about how this program was going to have different phases. And we alluded that that particular phase of the council making public outreach was a critical one for them to do because that's what's going to adopt the program or not. and they're in the position to do that better than us.
Well, I don't know that they'd probably have staff do it. I mean, to some degree, they might table at an event or, talk to people and they're going to get their own feedback. But in terms of like formally having events where we get feedback, that's probably more on staff.
But I mean, to say, I'm sorry, but again, they could say, they could come back to us and say, okay, so why don't you guys do a little bit of the outreach? And maybe we could say as a group, okay, we could do that. But at this point, that's sort of out of our mandate, I think.
Yeah, I guess I was bringing it up in the sense of like, would it possibly change how you guys feel about it if when you did outreach, you heard from those 2/3 to maybe it's even more, 4/5 of people that you talk to that say, yes, do this. We know there are some people that don't like it, but they'll get used to it. We need this. This is going to improve parking. And would that help if that were the case? But I don't know if it's the case. I don't know what people are going to say that come to tabling events or whatever sort of public outreach we do.
I think the key issue at this clear point in time is the one sentence under recommendation. Am
And I would
correct in
say
that?
the word adopt.
Adopt.
That's the
specifically, I
word
think,
adopt
yeah.
more than anything else.
Adopt or, I don't know.
Or maybe review. What if we say review the recommended parking permit program as Christian, right? So just let the council review the permit program. Doesn't necessarily say adopt it.
You're okay with the word recommended? Committee recommended?
I mean, this is the right, I believe that this would be the recommended program amongst all programs. If we had to make a program for Brisbane, given that Brisbane is unique, this is sort of what the research has shown would work the best based on our knowledge and sort of what we've gathered. So yeah, this would be the recommended program if there were to adopt the program.
So how about this? We recommend our review of what was given to us, basically our work. Something like that. I mean, Thomas is definitely more clever than I am. He could shim in there.
Yeah, we can do that.
We have spent hours on
Absolutely.
little tiny points of how is this going to work and who's going to be disadvantaged and who's going to be helped. And we've taken into account affordability for people. And we're calling it a living project. And I don't see any problem with recommending this for the council to look over, give us their feedback. We've worked way too hard to not stand behind our work.
Linda, I agree with you, but the way the sentence is written is that's not what we're saying in this sentence. What we're asking, what we're recommending council do is recommend the program as it is written down below. To adopt.
Do we need to add in that it's a living program that the first year rolled out free? We'll be getting information back and possibly making changes. And that's part of our recommendation anyway.
The way that's written, it says adopt the recommended guidelines.
You can change it, right?
And this
So-
is being written to the council. So for them, it's basically telling them, you can adopt our guidelines or provide additional direction.
So can you have guidelines without a program?
Well, I think the way this was my language, I think this part of the draft, right? And I think, I don't know if that was my intent, but to me, it reads as we've developed these guidelines at your request. Here they are. That's what I see. We do recommend these guidelines. This is our work.
Mhm.
And or provide direction to staff.
Yeah, because they may not. They were not unanimous in their thoughts in April of last year about how to deal with this. This is a difficult problem that the city has had a community group work on for my entire 28-year career with Brisbane. Not an easy nut to crack. So we've gotten pretty far.
What if we were to word this something along the lines of, should council adopt a parking permit program? CSSC recommends implementing with these guidelines.
I don't know. I think that's,
I just think they're bound to ask as staff once we present them. I mean, I understand your guys' point. We did the work, we worked hard. Here's our work. But I can only imagine they might be like, how does the committee feel about it though? You know,
I think the way we stated absolutely reflects how the committee and the community feels about it. It's very divided.
Why would they ask that question if this is the work that they asked us to do and we're presenting it to them?
well, like, you know,
Whether we liked it or not, we did really work hard.
I don't anticipate, not that I have a crystal ball, but I don't know that they'll be unanimous about such a program either.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Unanimous. They probably have mixed feelings about doing it as well.
Mhm.
But as the streets, policy and program recommending committee, they're curious I don't know, this is an interesting little
Which,
space in the middle of
Can I suggest something?
what we're doing.
under our original recommendation a year plus ago, it was to put a permit program to a citywide vote. That was our recommendation at that time. I mean, council don't even touch it with a 10-foot pole. Put it to the public and let the public decide what they want to happen to, what we want to happen to us.
Yeah, and we can, that's a good point, and it's something that could be added to this or verbally, presented in the
I
staff
think it should
report.
be in writing, because then it's a part of the record that anybody picks up and looks at on a piece of paper. It's all succinct in one place.
Well, is that back to being your recommendation as a committee?
Christian?
Yeah, so I think in the spirit of time and to move along with, continue reviewing the other points, is it possible to come back to this point?
Thoughts?
Or I'd be open to that as well. I think to Karen's point, if we add in a recommendation for public vote to the end of this document saying, the committee recommends this program subject to public vote, I would be very much in favor of that, but up to the committee, I think. So.
Okay.
And,
How
wording,
about if-
with that wording, I would accept the adopt then.
Christian's point is well noted. We're already 7:40 almost. What if we change this sentence to be recommend, adopt? City council hold a public vote as to whether or not to adopt the CSSC recommended parking permit program guidelines.
I like Darius's suggestion that we leave this alone and put that at the bottom.
Yeah, because they're reviewing the guidelines you're bringing. That's
Okay.
And I,
The last
Primary.
guideline would be, so I guess I moved to add to the guidelines then sort of to put this up to public vote if the council decides to adopt this sort of as part of our recommendation.
At the end,
At the last step, sort of after the guidelines, the last step would be subject to a vote of the public.
let's hold our motion to
Oh,
that
yeah.
point. if
Perfect.
we
Yeah,
could.
we'll do.
Are we okay? Okay. Can we,
Do we get the word? I mean, can you rephrase that
well, we'll
again?
get to it at the end. Maybe Darius do you need some paper or something, or it's in your head or your?
I'm jotting
Okay.
something down.
Okay. Let's go through the guidelines to make sure we're on board with that. Okay, the program will be in effect throughout central Brisbane, including Visitation Avenue, excluding private roads and the backside of San Bruno Avenue, for which no street parking exists. We're okay with that? As I look around, just raise your hand. You don't need for a prompt, I guess. Each household address may apply for and receive up to 2 permits, Accessory dwelling units, ADUs, may be issued one additional permit. Okay. Guest parking should be included in a program, but CSSC did not decide upon a specific recommendation on the number to be allowed. Staff suggests 14 permits per year per household and 7 per year for ADUs. Guest parking would be allowed whether the household obtains a year-round parking permits or not.
Sorry, on the previous point, one thing we're not, I guess, addressing here is additional permits beyond the first 2 permits. That's something we had discussed previously, and I don't know if we want to have a note here to let council kind of think about that some more. So it'd be sort of beyond 2 permits. What would that look like, whether for fee or something else that we might recommend?
I think that's what's we kind of lumped that into the living document phase. I mean, without actually enumerating, because there were a dozen more nuances like that, I guess, if we're okay with that.
Perhaps there's a comma and a comma and a period there. Maybe we add in with the option to purchase additional one, or with additional, or council allowing additional ones or something. It's on under the 2 permit part. We receive up to 2 permits, and there's a comma and a period. So either the comma needs to get rid of there, or, and I'm okay just leaving in the word living document as well. I think we don't need to necessarily explicitly say that. I think it's something that we discussed, and yeah, will be addressed, I guess. But it's sort of at the beyond to what happens.
Okay. So let me see if I'm clear. We should do something here at this statement now, or
I guess we did discuss sort of allowing something beyond 2 if someone were to have more than 2 vehicles. And so I'm not sure if that's addressed elsewhere. I don't see it in the other bullet points. That's why I kind of brought it up, but I'm not sure whether that should just be in the living document, something that we address and just note it, or have it here explicitly stated.
I think
I remember, talking a little bit about this. One idea was, not to sort of have a parking, give permits, and then people that have more means, they're going to buy a lot, right? And also to discourage it for the third to be more expensive. So those are the 2 caution things that we went back and forth. So I'm not sure how this will play out here, but we could definitely mention it.
Yeah, I guess if we didn't have a consensus on that, we just kind of maybe leave it as is, but something that to point out that maybe there may be more than 2.
So can I comment? I did talk to Commander Garcia when I drafted that part, because quite honestly, if council says, yes, there's a program and we start it, it's going to be him, police staff, that are going to look at those type of exceptions. It's not going to probably be you guys, the committee. And he said he didn't want to explicitly say that in here. It's kind of, I don't know, it's a very gray area, right? It's very like, you've got a kid home from college for this. He didn't want to list the examples and get into that here. I'm sure it will come up at the council meeting, and he'll address it, because they're going to be the ones, I think, deciding that. But there wasn't an easy way to, if you list an exception, everybody wants it, and then you can't list all of them, and it kind of waters down the point that it's, for most people, it's going to be 2. So I don't know if you guys are comfortable with that, but that's kind of where staff got it to.
I'm okay with that, yeah.
Okay. Everyone else? We're okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Fiscal impact, I don't think there were any changes there. Let's scroll down. Okay. Now, the key, Darius.
I guess the question is where to input that part then. That would probably be under sort of, I guess, discussion would it be, or be on the end here? I guess it'd be under the very end where this is sort of subject to, our committee would recommend a public vote for this, given the sort of severity of the program.
Maybe as the last bullet point in the discussion here.
Yeah, I think that would be an appropriate spot for that, perhaps. I'd move to add a bullet point to suggest that we recommend a public vote to enact such a program.
Okay, I like that. That's your motion. Yeah. Is that okay?
I move to add that to this document then.
Give the exact wording
So
again.
I move to add that the committee, or I guess, and then it says the program should be subject to a public vote in order to,
For implementation.
for implementation, yes.
Okay.
Second.
Second that motion.
Is there a second? Oh, okay, okay. Karen, did you get the wording, or Tomas, did you get the wording of?
Yeah, so there's a lot of points being made. I always, rewatch the recording,
Okay.
make the
But
changes.
that, but that was very specific language to add in.
To the committee, wants the implementation to implement, there'd be a public vote. And like I said, I'll have a recording of that and
Okay.
be able to see.
Okay. All right, then could we have roll call on the vote to add that in at the end of the discussion section?
Cabrera,
Aye.
Detmer, Strecker,
Aye.
Tainter,
Aye.
Wozniak.
Aye.
Okay. Then we've reached the end of this. Could I have a motion? Well, let's have a discussion first. Do we need to see this written again, or can we simply direct staff to amend it as we have instructed and then take it to council April 6th? What would the committee prefer to do?
I think I'm okay with, as long as the staff puts as instructed. Yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
Could I have a motion then to adopt the letter as amended?
I'll motion to adopt the letter as amended.
Seconded.
Second.
I second it.
Could we get a
I'll-
roll call
I'll
then?
call it a staff report to council, but
Staff report, okay. Staff
Cabrera?
report.
Cabrera,
Aye.
Detmer,
Aye.
Strecker,
Aye.
Tainter,
Aye.
Wozniak.
Aye.
You guys are doing great with the mics too, by the way.
Wow. 2 years of work, 2.5, almost 3. Yay. I hope. Okay, let's see. Can we have the agenda back up on screen? Let's see what's next.
So sorry, to confirm this will go in front of council then in the next meeting in April 6th then, potentially,
Correct.
as amended, yeah.
You'll be able to distribute that final letter back to us before then, correct? Karen and Tomas?
You want it before it's on the agenda?
Well, you have to write it before it's on the agenda, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
but last minute, I don't want to get last minute changes later.
No, not gonna change it.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
Okay, let's move on to new business. I think I would like to do E before we move to D. Let's see, can we make that change to the agenda at this
Well,
point
you
or not?
adopted the agenda.
I'm sorry,
You adopted the agenda.
we adopted the agenda already. Okay, can we then put up the work plan that we had talked about for 22? Can you expand that a little bit?
There it is.
There we go. Okay, this was the plan that we had put together, and I don't think we need to reach final decisions tonight, but I thought it would be good to discuss this now that we are probably coming to a close on at least part of the parking program at this point in time. That frees up our availability to work on other projects. So at the top of that was the parking permit program. The second item on our work plan for last year was investigate the potential for one-way streets, Mariposa and Monterey between Visitation and Solano. And actually, we had started working on that when council directed us to work on the parking permit program. Karen, is that still a high priority to the city, that one-way, that change?
I think it's my understanding, it's still, a desirable
Okay.
thing to be studied.
Okay. The third item at that time was emergency vehicle access on all city streets for fire safety. The fourth item was study pedestrian path on west side of Bayshore Boulevard from San Bruno Avenue to Old County Road. At the city council meeting where we were directed to work on parking, the mayor at that time expressed interest in this particular project as something that we should work on. Other projects that we had not that we had on our wish list, I guess, but not prioritized by council, were speeding on streets in the Northeast Ridge, specifically Mission Blue, review of SB 43 regarding local speed limits, and that's a state law whereby the speed limit can be lowered from 25 to a lower speed limit in certain areas. Improve bike lanes and initiatives to encourage bicycling. Review existing shuttle service and evaluate opportunities for improving service to and from Sierra Point. And finally, receive, I cannot read that.
Oh, sorry.
Find it here.
Oh,
There we go. Thank you. Receive and comment on Baylands transportation circulation plans or other proposals referred to by Director of Public Works. Anybody's thoughts on what we work on next? This is our open forum,
is
and
there-
if you have something that's not on this list, let's talk about it.
That's, I was just going to ask if I could add something potentially. I think looking into ways to slow down traffic on San Bruno Avenue is important, between San Francisco Avenue and the top of the ridge of the hill in central Brisbane.
What's the street? Is that Tulare? It's one above Tulare.
It's Thomas Avenue.
Thomas.
And in particular, I would say the area between Monterey and San Francisco, I believe is the streets, or Mariposa. I'm getting it wrong.
San Francisco is the last.
Yeah, San Francisco last one, and then 2 blocks up from there. So
Is Monterey.
Monterey. Okay, so that's right. Monterey, yeah.
And tell us why you think that's.
The reason being, I see a lot of speeders going through that area way faster than the current speed limit. And I've seen a couple near misses with children trying to cross the streets in those areas, especially during Halloween and different holidays and things like that. And when there's a lot of children at the park, for example, I think it's something I think it's something we can look into to see if there's any way we can slow down traffic there.
Okay. Anybody's thoughts on that?
I think it's an excellent idea. Very
I think-
important. It's safety for the children, for pedestrians, and people don't need to be speeding. It's just crazy on such small streets. I agree.
Okay. Any other comments?
I guess then another sort of note, similar to number 8, reviewing the, I guess, shuttle service, but also access points. I know we talked about the master plan to get to Sierra Point and sort of the connectivity there. It'd be great to sort of review that and maybe reevaluate and sort of, reassess what that looks like in the context of the development of the other Sierra Point developments.
Okay.
Also referring to item 8. I'm not sure if this is just hearsay or not, but I understand that there's not a whole lot of consideration for parking with the park development out there. And I would like for this committee to have an opportunity to review the parking and have input before it's finalized. I think it's very important.
But that's not yet a project for us yet, is that?
It is happening now. The brainstorming is going on and ideas. And my understanding is that there is going to be an issue with parking that has not been addressed yet. And same with the library. It has no parking, and it's a difficult place to go when everybody's at lunch. This is something I don't want to miss. We missed the library. We weren't asked to engage in that part of it, but I really would like to be engaged in the Sierra Point project.
Okay.
It's going to be major.
Should,
If you all agree, I'd like to see that added to number 8.
okay, I would agree to that. I'd also agree with what Greg had said, slowing down traffic, slowing speeds or reviewing speeds on San Bruno Avenue. I would agree to, I would like to see that added. Can we add, first of all, the one that Greg mentioned, How does everybody feel about doing that? Is that, I mean, this is not to set it in stone yet, to look at it again and make our priorities next week. But add to our list here, slow down traffic on San Bruno Avenue between San Francisco and Thomas Avenue.
Are
And
we,
then-
if people are going 25, you still want them to go slower than that? I'm just trying to clarify because we don't.
It's more
have
like
the
they're
data.
going 35
Well,
down that street.
Let's say hypothetically, if we took data and is 25 the goal?
I think
That's just my question.
A safe speed is the goal.
And the school is right in
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah, so the vehicle code only allows you to lower speeds, which we did within 500 feet of the school. So kids
right.
crossing further down the street.
I'm
I
aware
wouldn't
of
say
that.
it's necessary looking at the speed limits, but looking at more at ways we can
Traffic calming.
slow
Okay.
down the traffic in ways. I think speed limit 25 is pretty standard, but I think encouraging people to go 25 is kind of what we would want. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, because there's preliminary things like collecting data and asking police to go enforce there, which, you know, nothing works forever, even if you put up something that's a traffic calming device. I think I've talked about this maybe before you're on the committee. You kind of have to change things up to get people's attention. If you have a radar sign that flashes, that works for a while. If you have a chicane, people figure out how to, so you kind of, if there are 5 things to do, we do one, and then a couple years later, we look at another one. So you know, that there are probably things that we could do on San Bruno. I'm just trying to get a sense of like, you know, are we trying to get people to go 25 or less, or how bad is the problem? So thank you for answering.
And then regarding number 8, Darius and Linda, how would you reword that? Or what would you do there with that?
I mean, is there a way to maybe expand it just beyond shuttle service and just sort of reevaluate or give input to the development and sort of connectivity between central Brisbane, the Sierra Point, as well as future sort of development there, or perhaps, so maybe the wording might be review current plans or review, I don't know, does anyone else have, maybe Linda, any wording help here?
I would like to see the wording say something like, concurrent with the planning, the parking, so that if the committee that's working on that gets all the way to the end and then they present it to us, we've had no input and it might really mess up their whole plan. But if we can somehow have an opportunity to review it as it's being put together, I think that would be a really good idea. And I don't know how to put that into words.
So for number 8, you're saying, because, you know, you have the massive development, Berkshire Point, some of the shuttle might need to add another stop. And then from your point, Linda, you're basically saying we need to understand better how they're going to accommodate their parking. Do they have like a parking structure or?
Specifically for, I know I'd hate to see a parking structure, but specifically for the park that's being developed out there, which initially I believe was supposed to be small, but the plans have gotten very big. And if you don't have parking, how are people going to use it? So we've got to really look at a really fine, finessed way to allow people to arrive there and enjoy it.
Can I ask a question? Is the plan, I know I sat in on one of the meetings, but I wasn't super focused on all of the details. Is the plan changing are you guys aware that there's shared use we call it shared use parking lots out at the east end of Sierra Point that are available on the south end, the Harbor Masters and the Yacht Club, that's public parking. And then on the north end, along where all of the piers and the Fisherman's Pier and the docks are, that's all public parking that is city owned and maintained. I don't know if some of that's going away with the plan.
Is that
or the
parking
proposal.
shared by the people that have boats there also?
They also use it, yeah.
I guess
Okay.
maybe this is the later point for the updates portion, but this is going to council tomorrow anyways. And I think there's been maybe some I'm not sure what the, not miscommunication, but I think there was some sort of, I think the release of the plans is a little premature perhaps. I think that's just going tomorrow to council to sort of discuss that. I think these are being viewed as sort of proposals or plans. I think that's not the intention originally. And so I think this is sort of more to open up discussion. I think the parking concerns are definitely, I think we're not too late for it yet. And I'm not sure what kind of wording we can include here, but it is, I think, going to council tomorrow. And I think it'll be a healthy, good discussion. And I plan on being there. So, you know, it'd be really great to see you guys there, but I think it is more still perhaps a, again, I want to be cautious in my wording, but sort of there'll be a reassessment tomorrow, I think, of sort of where it's been and what's been developed, what's been decided. I don't think there's been anything. Yeah, I think it's come across that there's been some decisions. I don't think that's the case though. But I think we'll again hear tomorrow at council more. But I guess all that to say, in the wording here, I'm not sure how much we can say regards to sort of in parallel with that. I think it would be good to have something to say, you know, inform or sort of take all this into consideration. Yeah. But I do want to, yeah, we should definitely have wording here around our involvement in that project. Yeah, and sort of all aspects, including the parking as well as circulation, connectivity to that area via shuttle or whatever else it may be.
Thank you.
Transportation plan.
In that case, should we add bicycle too?
Absolutely.
I do believe there's people either on the committee or on the fringes of the committee that are advocating bicycle things out there already. But yeah, it would be good. I don't know that we should be involved in the bicycle part at this point until we see what they're going to come up with.
So perhaps something around the words of, I don't know if it's review or sort. I guess this is part of the. I guess we do want to review the existing shuttle service and perhaps reevaluate other opportunities. Because there's some way to make that more broad.
Mike.
He's on a roll.
What if we were to just call this point 8 transportation plan for Sierra Point, and under point 8, item A would be the shuttle bus, item B would be parking, item C would be other transportation and parking issues or bicycles. Yeah, would that be all inclusive? Okay.
Yeah,
That's a good
that
idea.
sounds really good.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm similar to this past Friday, you know, when I send out the agenda in minutes where this revised one will be there. So you guys can all
Great.
take a look.
And then we can look at it maybe next month and kind of decide what our priorities are and then talk to our liaisons and council and such.
I also have one more. If you guys don't have any more to say about point 8, I want to say something about point 9.
Yes.
Because this is a massive project, and I know there's been, you know, different maps and so forth circulated. And at one point, you know, it would be good to have a refresher or better understanding, you know, the bicycling routes, because it's, you know, it's supposed to have, you know, they really are considering, you know, incorporate that as much as possible.
Are you meaning specifically to the Baylands or more in a more general?
I think the Baylands.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was for point 9, right?
Yes. Let's add that into that then as well.
I get a question from me. Is this something that has to go in front of the council again, given this is the 2022 goals? Something we have to like present again, or is this sort of adopted by liaisons?
No, this was what we proposed to council, and then they came back and prioritized, whereas parking was now in number 1. So it used to be in past years, we had a work plan and we broke up into subcommittees and worked on 2 and 3 people at a time would work on individual projects, and then we'd come back, report to the whole committee. But yeah, I guess a year and a half ago, we changed that to focusing all on just one project at a time. And I think it's worked well this past year. I think it's caused us to be focused.
We
All
might
right.
have a problem with just focusing on one thing with this work list because there's things that are going on concurrently. For example, the park at the Sierra Point thing will be happening as we are
Yes.
focusing on whatever our next first thing is.
Well, maybe it should be our highest priority then. I mean, that's for us to decide as our recommended for next week, right? I mean,
Yeah.
next month.
Yeah, well, I would recommend concurrent because we're not going to be working on it all the time.
Okay.
And there's some other very important things at the top of the list that
Okay.
we've put off for a long time. So-
Okay. I understand. That's a good point. Okay. Let's move on in the agenda then. If
I
there's
just want
no
to
more
clarify
discussion.
when you said 3 people, it was when we had a committee of 7. So we
Actually,
were
yeah, that's right.
below a quorum when
less
with
than a quorum.
subcommittees. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to election of chair to replace myself. Before anything, does anyone have nominations that they'd like to make? Okay, I would like to then make a nomination. I'd like to nominate Christian to become chair of the committee.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Could we have a roll call on that?
Are you going to have the whole panel or you want to do one and then the other?
Should we do chair and vice chair together?
Yeah.
Okay,
Unless you have, yeah.
we
I
can do
think we
that.
should do them separately.
Any nominations for vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Darius Wojciak as vice chair. Do you have a second?
I second that.
All right. So, and that's the extent of the nominations.
Any other nominations? Okay, that's the.
So this is a roll call vote to elect Christian as chair and Darius as vice chair. Cabrera,
Aye.
Detmer, Strecker,
Aye.
Tainter,
Aye.
Wozniak.
Aye.
Okay. Congratulations, gentlemen. Yeah. Okay, staff updates.
No, just one thing I was working on today in the field. You might have seen me walking around, but we're looking to take care of some of the trip hazards that are on Valley and San Bruno, and so we're focusing on those for this project. We know there are more. We've received public feedback, and we know there's some trip hazards scattered throughout. But yeah, we are currently talking with a contractor and going to be handling that any day now.
Thank you.
I've been focused on this, so.
Okay.
No one else.
Any committee member matters to discuss?
I guess I'll just comment that the committee or the Sierra Point committee is presenting tomorrow in front of the city council. And like I mentioned, I think it'll be an interesting discussion. And so I would encourage you to call in, but otherwise I think we'll have a sort of summary next time as well.
What is being
I think they're
presented
gonna,
tomorrow?
I think the committee is gonna present sort of what research they've done to date and what the process has been like. And I think it's gonna be an evaluation of the process to date and sort of the feedback collected and a discussion.
Okay.
I think it's, open to public.
Like a
and
progress
encouraged.
report, I guess?
What's that?
Like a progress report?
I think it's been sort of it'll be a report of the sort of directive has been till now. I think there's been some confusion and not clarity around that. So I think it's going to be sort of an evaluation of what that's been, an update sort of what's occurred till now, the various stages, and I think a sharing of that and sort of a feedback on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just being on
Is
the,
this
on
a
the
public
s-
meeting?
on the, yeah, at the council meeting, but being on the sidelines of that, my recollection is that it's a presentation. It's not, council's not making any decisions at that meeting. It's just a discussion.
One thing that I have is that we should probably schedule a meeting with our liaisons at one of our future meetings with our council liaisons.
I agree. 100%.
I'm not sure who that
been a
is
while.
now after the reorg.
Yeah,
I'm
so
not-
I think
I'm not sure who it is
in
either.
in general, Karen and Tomas, I mean, I feel comfortable having Pat, but at one point it will be it would be good to meet and sort of show me how, a little roadmap of this new role, basically, as chairman. I'm not sure if she changes a lot, but I'm sure it's going to change somewhat.
Yeah, sure. We'll set that up.
Okay, anything else? Art-
Yes,
Art.
yes. Question is to staff. There was an April meeting scheduled. I believe to bring everyone up to speed on how the Brown Act will affect us, or the changes of going back to pre-COVID status. Is there a date for that yet?
Are you saying it was brought up when we had the city clerk here last month,
I think
Ingrid?
so,
Yeah.
last month.
I have not heard that something has been set.
Okay.
I have heard just the very beginnings of, at the state level, they are relooking at SB 2449, but I heard nothing about to what extent or anything more about that.
I have one more question.
I'll follow up with the city clerk though about,
Okay. April 5th, how do I go about joining via Zoom? Is that very hard to do?
will you email us? And the rules are new to us too, so I'm gonna have to relook at them again. And
Okay, I may have a difficult time getting here on April 5th, so I just want to be able to attend.
yeah, send that first email and we'll look at, we'll talk about which one it qualifies under and then,
Okay, great. Thank you.
okay.
Is that a mandatory meeting?
Yeah, we meet every first Wednesday of the month, so they're all mandatory meetings.
No, I was referring to the
Oh, the one with the city
Brown
clerk?
Act, yeah.
No, I think it's, I don't know what she has planned. Maybe it's something that you can zoom into to get the information, or there might be other ways to give you the information. I think it was to clarify what the process is and answer some of the questions that were still remaining after her presentation. So that won't count against your attendance record, let's say.
Could I have a motion then, if there's nothing else, to move to adjournment?
I move to adjourn.
Second,
I second the motion.
all in favor?
Fourth.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everyone.